Have you ever walked into a room full of women and suddenly felt your chest tighten, your body tense, as though you weren't safe? Even if there was no danger as such, even if nobody said anything, a part of you felt small, uneasy, and unwelcome. Welcome back, my loves, to the Healing the Feminine Wound series. And today's topic is very interesting. But before that, I want to say if you're new here, my name is Isha, and I'm a feminine embodiment coach and Akashic Records healer. And I help women heal their feminine wounds and reclaim their soul truth and power. And if you're somebody who is on the same path, then please subscribe to this channel and join the journey. So today I want to talk about a wound that has quietly shaped our feminine psyche, and it is called the sister wound. Sister wound is something that I carried for many years without realizing it. I don't have a biological sister. I have two brothers, so I assume that since I don't have sisters of my own, this cannot touch me. This wound couldn't affect me. But I was wrong because I have countless cousins and friends. And yes, I too was carrying this subtle pain within me, this sense of disconnection, a longing to have this true sisterly support that I didn't recognize back then. So in December 2020, I was going through an incredibly challenging time in my life, and suddenly I felt that to heal from this pain, I need sisterly support. I need true sisterhood around me. It was for the first time that I was feeling this deep urge for a true sisterly connection. I was craving this deep understanding, this emotional safety, but I wasn't receiving it the way my soul was craving for it. As I said, I have many friends, like female friends. They couldn't provide me the kind of support I was looking for. Even my closest friends, who I trust deeply, they were kind of busy in their own lives. One thing is this, but the kind of support I received back then from them, it was just insufficient for me. The kind of depth I was craving was not something that I received. So, in that space, that ache of connection, I realized that there is a wound here. I am unable to receive support from my sisters around me, and I'm also not able to trust them. And I realized that there is a wound here. There is something that I need to look into. So, this need for sisterly connection, and yet me not receiving it the way I thought I deserved, was my sister wound. That actually had silently shaped my life. This was quietly shaping how I related to women, how I related to myself, and my feminine within me. So, what is a sister wound? Sister wound, as for me, is the pain and mistrust that exist between women in general in the society. It's emotional, it's subtle, and it can sometimes be traumatic. It can show up as jealousy, rivalry, insecurity, exclusion, or any other kind of subtle disconnection between women. As I said, this wound isn't just about siblings. It can come from your friends, your childhood friends, or the women that you become friends with later in life. So, at its core, this wound creates disconnection between women, but it also it creates a disconnection within us with our own inner feminine essence. And it runs as deep as the mother wound because it affects how we trust, relate to, and open ourselves to support and love within the feminine collective. For me, it started as this deep urge that I experienced back in 2020, urge to have a sisterly connection, deep sisterly support, and not receiving it. But eventually it started showing up in all the areas of my life. For example, me feeling unsafe in women's circle. I remember attending workshops and longing for a sisterhood. But then at the same time, when I would be in those situations, I would feel anxious. I would feel small and as if my voice didn't belong. But it wasn't just the group setting. For me, it was like the old memories resurfacing, memories of rejection, exclusion, even from the sisters I deeply, deeply loved and cared for. And if this all sounds familiar, then you probably too have the same wound sitting inside of you, just silently shaping your life experiences in the ways you may not even realize that you have it. So, how does this wound show up in our lives? This wound can be really subtle. Like you might feel like it's almost invisible in your life, like it was in my case. For many years, I had no idea. And yet, it quietly shapes the way you show up with other women around you, or even with yourself. So, there are a few ways to identify how it's living inside your body and quietly shaping your life. Okay, before I start, I want to mention that all these points can it can be you experiencing it in your life or vice versa, you doing it to somebody. For example, let's start. Number one, jealousy. So here, jealousy is not very, like, it's not overt. It's like a silent whisper, this silent, quiet voice, this quiet voice inside of you that says, she's more deserving than me, I'm less than her, and I do not feel good about it. Example, one of your friends announces her promotion, like she recently got promoted and she's happily sharing the news with you. And instead of celebrating her, instead of being fully present with her in her happiness, you feel this pang of jealousy within you. That's your sister one. Number two is judgment. You may find yourself criticizing other women, whether out loud or quietly in your mind, about how they dress up, how they speak, how they carry themselves. So, gossip is often a symptom here, where the wound manifests itself in subtle forms like tearing somebody down just to feel better about yourself. And as I said, both these points and the points that we are going to discuss, it can be that you do this or you're at the receiving end. In both cases, there's a wound. Next one, insecurity. You might constantly compare yourself with other women around you, feeling less than or not good enough. Maybe you hesitate to speak up in groups. I'm biggest example of this. I used to be so scared. Or you might avoid going to women's circles altogether, even when you really want to, because you fear judgment or exclusion. Next one is exclusion. Very important point. This exclusion could be deliberate, that you are doing this to somebody deliberately, like leaving someone out, or it could also be subtle. When we hold ourselves back, like we know that we have to be present with more warmth or acceptance, but we hold back that warmth, attention, or support. And you could be at the receiving end of something like this, where you feel absolutely unseen, unsupported, and unloved. Next one is you keep friendship at a distance. Deep down, you crave this deep connection with sisters around you, but you convince yourself that you don't get along with women, or that female friendships are too complicated, too much competition, like it's too competitive, too fragile, or there is too much drama. Next one is you feel uneasy to be in groups. And this could be because of any past experiences, like really traumatic experiences. So even if you have a lot of friends, you just feel unsafe being in a group setting. In general, the energy of the group makes you feel unsafe. It triggers you in some way. It triggers an old feeling. For example, that anxiety, the tiny, anxious teenage you sitting inside of you that never experienced a real connection in a group makes you feel this way, that you never let your guards down. Next one is you're somebody who overcompensate, or which is also known as fawn response. So you probably, in this situation, you probably have the friend who always plans, always gives, always overgives, I would say, and takes care of everyone around you. Because deep down, you're afraid that if you stop, your presence won't matter and you'll be left out. And here's the thing, all these patterns are not personal failures. They are not who you are. They are just protective mechanisms that you learned to survive with when you were younger, when your nervous system didn't feel safe and didn't know how to make itself feel safe again, when you were trying to navigate exclusion, disconnection, and judgment from other women. And this sister wound doesn't just affect friendships, it also affects the way you experience sisterhood, mentorship containers, collaborations, and how you experience your own feminine energy. This is why female competitions, subtle comparisons, or feeling of being left out can feel so intense. And it's not about the other person, it's about the wound that exists within you, that's waiting to be acknowledged, felt, and healed. So take a moment, love, and notice if you resonate with any of these. Chances are that there's a piece of you that's been carrying this for a long, long time. Now, why does this happen? Why does it exist in our world? Why do we have sister wounds? So it has not appeared out of nowhere. It's woven into our history, our culture, and the way women have been conditioned over centuries. For generations, women lived in a world where survival meant competing with each other for male approval, for financial security, social standing, or even safety. When resources fell scarce, competition and rivalry became a way to protect oneself. And over time, this conditioning turned into internalized mistrust, where women were taught, often silently, that other women are rivals, not allies. And let's add to that Messages given by the media and the society, beauty standards, success metrics, and the idea that there's only one spot at the top. This created an environment where the women learn to measure themselves against each other rather than seeing each other as the mirrors of strength and possibility. And on a personal level, many of us carry these stories of betrayal, jealousy, or exclusion by other women, whether it was in school, workplace, or even within the families. And these wounds can cut deep because sisterhood is supposed to feel safe. And when it doesn't, the pain lingers. So this wound is not our fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's a collective inheritance. But acknowledging this wound is really powerful because when you see it clearly, you see that you also have the choice to stop carrying it forward. Now, how can we begin to start healing this wound within us? So, when you're healing this wound within you, you're actually adding to the healing of the collective. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it's not about fixing yourself, it's about softening into remembrance that women were never meant to compete, they were meant to rise together. So, first, we need to begin with awareness. As with any other practice, awareness should be the first step always. So ask yourself gently, where do I find myself comparing to other women? Where do I hold back trust, expecting betrayal even before it happens? In what moments do I shrink when other woman shines? Where do I silence myself out of fear of judgment or fear of rejection by other women? So, this first step as awareness is the doorway. From here, the healing is an ongoing practice, it's like a return. So, once you've started practicing awareness, I want you to practice radical self acceptance. The root of the sister wound is that we are not enough. We need to compete, we need to be better than others, right? So, the healing should start with choosing yourself as is. So, start meeting yourself fully, your body, your gifts, your flaws, your whole being, your power. The more you accept yourself fully, the less there is space for comparison to grow. So practice radical self acceptance and tell yourself, I am enough exactly as I am. Next is we need to start celebrating other women. So if you're not used to it, at first it might feel a bit uncomfortable and even forced in some cases to celebrate other women's success without resentment. But this practice literally rewires this old pattern. We need to get rid of this old conditioning. So you have to try this. When a sister shares her accomplishment with you and you start to feel that something is shrinking in you have to take a deep breath and remind yourself that her light does not dim mine. In fact, her success expands what's possible for all of us. This simple ritual shifts envy into expansion. Next is creating safe sisterhood. So, the sister wound convinces us that sisters cannot be trusted, that women cannot be trusted, right? But the healing asks us to risk vulnerability again. Start with one woman, like somebody who you really feel safe with. It could be a mentor, it could be a friend, it could be a cousin or a teacher, whoever you want, and share something real, something vulnerable, not the polished version, but the real truth of what you are carrying within you. And allow yourself to be held even in small ways. And over time, you will experience that sisterhood, when safe, is one of the deepest nourishment for us. Now I'm giving you an embodiment practice. How can I not? Because embodiment is really dear to me. It's my life's work. So sister wound doesn't just live in the mind, like most of the wounds that humanity is carrying. It lives in the body. Like jealousy burns your chest. Disgust tightens your belly. Betrayal breaks your heart. So whenever you experience these emotions, instead of avoiding them or bypassing them, I want you to feel them fully through breath, by breathing into them and by moving through them. Give these sensations expression, dance them out, shake them, moan, stretch, whatever you want. Let the body release all of this and don't let your mind come in between. Tell your mind we'll make sense of it later. Right now, this is body's time to express itself. Every time you allow yourself to move this way, to breathe this way, to express the way you want to express all those stuck emotions, you free yourself a little more. Next point that I want to mention is compassion for the lineage. So these patterns, sister wound, very important to heal the feminine lineage. It didn't begin with you. It is inherited, shaped by generations of women who came before you, who had to fight for scraps in patriarchal system. And remember, This is not your personal flaw. It is a collective wound that we are looking into. And meeting it with compassion rather than shame allows you to end the cycles that has lived in your lineage for centuries. And the last point that we need for the healing of sister wound is allow yourself to choose again and again to believe in sisterhood. It won't always be perfect, but every time you open your heart to another woman, every time you celebrate her, and every time you hold yourself as well as sisters around you in compassion, you're not just healing your own wound, you're healing everyone else's wound. You're healing the collective one. Healing the sister wound is about stepping into deeper maturity, where women no longer see each other as threats, but they see others as allies and co-creators of the world that we rise together in. Now, sisterhood may have been passed down to us through history, but healing it within us is our responsibility. It is part of the feminine rising today. Every time you decide to fully embrace yourself and celebrate other women's success, to lean into trust instead of fear, you rewrite the story, not just for yourself, but for everyone, for all women. This is the sacred work of remembering that others' woman light does not dim yours, that her success, her brilliance, her beauty is a proof that feminine is alive and thriving, and so are you. So healing the sister wound is not about perfection. It's about making small choices to see other women as not competition, but as kin, to honor your own self, your own body, your gifts so deeply that the wounds of comparison dissolves themselves, to extend compassion to the parts of you that still hurt, that still hesitate. And as you do this, you don't just heal yourself, you become a ripple. You become a kind of woman that inspires others to soften, to trust, and to rise together. Because when women heal sister wound, we all rise higher. So thank you for being here with me, and thank you for listening to this episode. If this touched you in some way, I would love for you to share it with a sister you think might need to listen to these words. And I'll see you in the next episode.